Hello, this is Matt from tracyandmatt.co.uk, and here I have the Acer Aspire One D250. Just going to do an unbox for you. Slightly unusual, this laptop itself, or netbook in fact, in that it has actually got dual load in that we have Android as well as Windows 7. So we're going to actually take a quick look. This is the netbook itself. I'm going to come back to that in just a second while we see what else is in the box. So we have the Acer Passport, which is to do with your international 1-year limited warranty. You have the actual warranty and guarantee information in there. Then we have the instant on information for setting up Android instant on, which in actual fact this manual is printed in French, German and Italian. So I'm going to have to brush up on my French. And we have contact details for all the Acer offices throughout the world. Then we have the actual manual itself, again printed in French, German and Italian. And then last of all is the actual quick guide or quick getting started information, along with a piece of cardboard. But basically covers things like installing the battery, plugging in, turning on, and using the keyboard, powering up. Those sorts of bits and pieces, pretty standard stuff. So in the box we have a UK 3-pin power cord and an adapter stroke charger, so that we obviously plug that in, and it has a bullet style connector on the other end for actually just plugging in and charging up the netbook. And in the other end we actually have got a European power plug also included. So that's all the accessories that we actually get inside the box itself. So let's take a look at the netbook. So obviously this is the red version, available in a number of other colours, including just like a standard black. And if we look inside, we have a decent sized QWERTY keyboard. Obviously this one is laid out slightly differently because it's Italian, so main QWERTY keyboard is exactly the same, but where we find some of the other symbols is going to be slightly different on the UK model, but to all intents and purposes it's pretty much the same. We have a forward facing VGA camera for using video conferencing, Skype and MSN, that sort of stuff, and also a microphone at the front. 10.1 inch display, which is 1024 by 600 pixels. It is LED backlit, which makes it quite crisp and bright, and also does improve battery performance. As I say, QWERTY keyboard is laid out quite nicely. It's virtually a full-size QWERTY, and it's quite nice, pretty standard. Nothing really to report on the actual QWERTY keyboard itself. Power button here and a couple of LED indicators along the top row. Then we have the trackpad, which is fairly small, and it is actually sort of integrated within the sort of chassis rather than being a separate portion that actually sits there. It's quite small, but it does the job. Then we have the actual mouse keys just underneath, mouse buttons, left and right mouse buttons there. Again, it's a single button, just laid out there, obviously pressed on either end for left and right mouse keys. It does report obviously here that we have an Intel Atom processor running at 1.6 GHz. We have 1 gig of RAM, which isn't actually upgradable. It is fixed at sort of 1 gig, which is a little bit unfortunate maybe. But Windows 7 does run quite happily with 1 gig of RAM, so that's perhaps not too troubling. I think if it was Vista then it would struggle a little bit more than Windows 7. 250 gig hard drive is also built in. And if we actually take a quick look around the hardware, we have an Ethernet connector on the back which supports up to gigabit Ethernet. We have a VGA connector which obviously can plug into an external monitor, a USB 2.0 USB connector, headphone and microphone connectors just on the front there. Really nothing to see along the front. There is a small switch there which actually toggles your wireless connectivity on and off. It's actually a physical button or switch there, which is quite cool, quite useful. Have a cover here which is actually covering a card reader which supports SD, XD, MS Pro and MS Pro Duo Connect cards. They can all plug into the one slot. Another 2 USB connectors which are USB 2.0, and then where we plug in the charger stroke power adapter. There's also a Kingston lock there on the back. Nothing really to see on the back or bottom half. The battery itself just pops out like so and slides out of the back. Which is pretty straightforward. There are models available in the range that do have built-in wireless 3G. This one doesn't have that, and this one doesn't have Bluetooth, but it does have Wi-Fi. If I actually just power up very quickly, It doesn't take long to actually boot up initially. Let me just tell you about the size. 260mm wide, 184mm from front to back, and when it's closed it's only 30mm thick. Only weighs 1.24 kilos, so it's pretty lightweight. Well, it does also have a fairly decent sized display as well. What I say, 1024 by 600 pixels. Having a nice wide display is pretty good. 600 pixels maybe on the low side, but if actually you're browsing the internet or when you're on the go and that sort of stuff, isn't bad at all. So when we first turn on, it actually does boot up into Android. So we have an Android operating system on here, which is fairly familiar. Anybody that's in Android on a mobile device will probably kind of recognise a lot of what's actually here. We have the sidebar here, which actually brings over all of our other applications that are installed. So you've got your web browser, calculator, calendar, settings menu, webmail, power management, and so on, all along the side. And then we can just drop that away, and we can get to those things along the bottom here as well. So we can go into the internet, and we've got our web browser, which is actually all pre set up. It's just loading up here with into Google. Have a nice toolbar, and it's a fairly decent browser. Good browsing experience. Advantages obviously of having Android is that it's pretty much instant on. So if you just want to switch on the laptop or netbook and just go onto the internet or pick up your mail or something like that, without waiting for it to boot up into Windows 7, you can actually do that and just use Android. And power consumption is probably going to be a lot less than actually if you boot up a full operating system. So we'll actually take a look at Android in a bit more detail when it comes to our full review. If we want to go to Windows, we just tap this here at the side. Do you want to switch to Windows now? We just say yes, and within a second or so it'll just kind of reboot. And we'll start loading Windows or Windows 7. So there we go, that's the Acer Aspire One D250, which is a dual load Android netbook. We'll have a full review for you on tracyandmatt.co.uk over the next couple of weeks. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter. On Twitter we are Tracy and Matt, just as about to kick off a new competition, so it's definitely worth following us on Twitter. And we'll be back soon with some more videos and reviews on tracyandmatt.co.uk.